I'm Eric Barnes with the Daily Memphian, and welcome to The Sidebar, a weekly show on the community, arts, culture, and more. Today we're talking with Carissa Hussong, Executive Director of the Metal Museum, so stay with us for a conversation with Carissa. And a special thanks to our sponsor, Youth Villages. Carissa, thanks for being here again.
Thank you.
We were trying to figure out, I think it was a couple years ago, it was definitely 2 years ago we had you on, as things were ramping up with the Metal Museum. I guess that's the quick thing, or the long thing. What's the update on the new building and the construction and fundraising and opening and all that kind of stuff?
Well, we are well into construction now. So groundbreaking, which we actually called a new beginning ceremony, happened in August, and construction really started after that in September. We have done all of the demo work. They've started framing out all of the spaces. So it's the main building, the former College of Art building, is pretty far along. And then the new building, which was where a 70s edition was that we took down.
And is that the part that's back there? I was at the Shell last weekend.
Yes.
And you can see the huge, you can
structure.
see the iron. So there was something there.
There was a single-story building, and
Okay.
it was their sculpture department, so it was woodworking, metalworking, and ceramics was in that area.
Okay.
And so we took that building down and then basically built in the same footprint.
Okay. And that what will be back there? So if people are going to the Shell right now, they're in their summer season. We had them on last week. What will be in that part that people can see from the Shell area?
So that will be our foundry and blacksmith shop. So the tallest part of the building, that will be the floor of the foundry and the blacksmith shop. And then right between the Shell and that building is what we're calling our fabrication yard. And we'll do iron pours in that space and set up sculpture and just different things. And then the space that's between the the tallest part of the building and the Memphis College of Art building is kind of studio spaces. We'll have a demonstration area, a digital lab, a pattern making room, so various kind of support spaces for the blacksmith shop and foundry.
I think I'm sure I'd seen that on a rendering. I know we'd written about it, but it's always different when you see it. And when you have that experience of what was there before, it's like when someone tears a house down or tears a store down. This is much bigger. It did really reinforce how much more space you all have than you have now down on the river. Like it brought it home to me. Maybe that's just some visual. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be amazing.
Pretty much everything is 3 times what we had before.
Yeah.
And so if you took all of the spaces that we use for metalworking, put them together, you could fit them into that building 3 times.
And what will that do in terms of, what does that mean besides just being more space and maybe bigger pieces of art? Does it mean more artists working at a given time, artists who are more making bigger things that they weren't able to do downtown, or they did it downtown, but it was really hard because, just the limitations of space? Like, what are the ramifications of that?
It's all of those things.
Okay.
So right now we have an apprenticeship program. It's a 2-year program where artists come, they live at the museum, they work in the shop, and they really not only hone their metalworking skills, but they learn the business side. So they work with clients, they do design work, budgeting. They really learn all aspects of the trade. And so right now we really can only host 1 in each studio. So we'll basically go to 2 to 3 apprentices in the future. But we just physically it's not safe to have that many people in that space. So
Gotcha.
we'll be able to have more apprentices and also host more interns. So we do both academic and non-academic internships. Right now we have an intern who is in our fine metals area and the repairs area, but we really can't have multiple interns at one time just from a space standpoint.
Yeah.
So we'll really be able to bring more kind of emerging artists into our programs through that, but also bigger projects and also be able to teach more. So one of the examples I like to use is the Mosasaur skeleton that's in front of the Pink Palace. We did that project during COVID, and it took over the entire length of our current studio. And it took them almost a full day to get it out of our studio as well. But if we had been teaching classes, we could not have done that project, because to teach a class in that space, we would have had to have broken everything down, moved it out of the studio space, set up to teach a class, teach a weekend class, and then bring it back in. And it's a really inefficient way to work. And so all of our projects currently, that's what we have to do when we teach welding and blacksmithing classes in that space. So in this new space, what will happen instead is we just pick that whole thing up on a crane, move it to the side, and teach a class. And so this way we'll be able to continue to teach weekend classes, but we can teach evening classes as well, which we just can't do in the current location because of it being so inefficient. So when you look at that new building and the spaces, it's really unique because we do have a foundry and a blacksmith shop working side by side. And the way it's set up, each of those kind of studios, they can be working together or they can take over more of the space. So if we have a big cast iron conference, like we just had Fires, our annual cast iron conference, they could take 2/3 of the space and have a big conference in that area. But then if we had a project like the Mosasaur and we needed more room, the blacksmith shop could take over more of.
Right.
But the other thing about the Mosasaur, which I love talking about, is that project could not have been done if we didn't have the foundry and the smithy working together.
Right.
Because it's cast, forged, and fabricated. And it had to be done that way from just the kind of an engineering standpoint, because the head of that is cast in aluminum, and it would have been so heavy in iron, it would not have been stable.
Yeah.
But then when you're thinking about making the ribs, each of those are slightly different. And if you were to cast all of those individually and have to make a different mold for each one, it would have made the project really expensive. So it was a way that we could create something that neither studio could do on their own, and brought them together. And so having these two studios right next to one another and sort of intermingling allows us to really continue to do that work in collaboration rather than in isolation.
Well, I want to come back to a bunch of things you said, but one thing, I can't remember what the target date is to open. Oh,
it will be opening in September of 26.
So another year plus. Okay. This is a weird question. What are the economics of how, you've got this big campaign right now and you've got this big building you're building, separate from those economics, the economics of running the Metal Museum and these classes and internships is what? I mean, how much is people paying a fee for a class? How much is fundraising? How much is endowment? Like, not to the penny, but you know what I mean? Like, I'm always kind of interested, again, now for 7 years now I've run a nonprofit, the Daily Memphian, and the economics of nonprofits are not always what people expect. We try to run much more like a business than some nonprofits. Some nonprofits, I used to be on the board of the Overton Park Conservancy. It's a free and open park. Its mission is to not make money.
Yeah.
So it's incredibly dependent on donations. Like, people do it different ways. So for the Metal Museum in the past, and now with this new studio, with the new space, again, separate from the costs of building out and all that, what are the economics? I don't know.
We are unusual for a museum in that we are about kind of 50-50 earned and unearned revenue, which is unusual. Most museums' earned revenue is a much smaller portion. And a big part of that is the metalworking facility. So we do charge for projects, we do charge for classes. And those projects are really essential to our education program. I mean, yes, it is, we are charging to create projects for people, but those projects are a teaching tool for our artists. And because it's a teaching tool, we are not as efficient. So
as efficient as a business would be.
Right.
Okay.
We're not as efficient as a actual fabrication shop would be. So we're not really making a profit. We're just sort of covering the expenses of our artists. And the way that we're currently set up, we have our director of the metal studio, and then we have a lead blacksmith, and the apprentice works under that lead blacksmith. And a lot of that person's time is teaching the apprentice different techniques and skills. So I don't know how to put this, but I mean, it's just there's a lot of time that goes into making sure that we are teaching artists and they are learning.
Sure.
And so they're slower when they're doing things in a for-profit shop. And so all of that is taken into consideration, but that is a teaching tool. And then, of course, we teach classes. We also offer a lot of classes. We have a number of different scholarships that we offer, and then we do offer students in our after-school program opportunities to take classes for free. We've offered more tech students opportunities to take classes when they don't fill up. So we do offer a lot of opportunities within kind of the paid class structure, and then free hands-on activities and various things. But that is a big source of our revenue. Our museum store does well, and we anticipate that it'll do even better in a central location.
Well, I mean, that I'm curious about that. I'm going to do a little housekeeping, but I want to circle back to the changes, not just of the bigger size and all that brings, but just the location. I mean, so we'll circle back to that. We're here with Carissa Hussong. She's executive director of the Metal Museum. I'm Eric Barnes, and this is The Sidebar, which airs here on WYXR 91.7 every Thursday at 11:30, focused on the community, arts, culture, and everything in between. It's also one of a number of weekly podcasts we do at the Daily Memphian, including the Memphis Grizzlies podcast and our food podcast, Soundbites, hosted by Holly Whitfield, which also airs here on WYXR every Thursday at 11. We also host the podcast version of Behind the Headlines, the TV show we produce with the folks at WKNO every week. All of our podcasts are on the Daily Memphian site, as well as iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. And you can get this show and Soundbites on WYXR.org or on the WYXR app, where you can also get all the WYXR shows, both the talk shows and the music shows, archives of all the work and music and conversations that the DJs and hosts are doing on YXR. If you're not a supporter of WYXR, it is nonprofit, listener-supported radio, so become a member or do a one-off donation. You can go to the site, go to the app, and you can learn more about becoming a member and all the benefits you get. And if you're not a paid subscriber to the Daily Memphian, please do become one. Paid subscriptions pay for about half of what we do, the largest newsroom in the region. Then we have advertising and events, and as I was saying, a certain amount of, about 20% of what we do is philanthropy. So if you're a subscriber, you can also donate. We love that. Recently on The Sidebar, we had Shell on Wheels, which I just mentioned. We also talking about the whole Shell series and things they're doing with the Shell on Wheels around the community. We spoke to the folks from Live at the Garden about their series that's starting soon. And Pat Mitchell-Worley from Soulsville Stacks was on some weeks ago. You can get all those wherever you get your podcasts. I mentioned Behind the Headlines, and this week, I think it's this week, we have Lee Harris, County Mayor, and Erica Sugarman from the County Commission talking about budgets and all kinds of other things. We also have Brent Taylor and Mark White from the state legislature coming up in a few weeks talking about the school system and maybe potential changes to oversight and control and so on of the school system. Recently, we had a really great show on homelessness and the Hub, and Kelsey Johnson from the Hub, as well as Rhonda Logan from City Council, talking about some of the new efforts to expand available housing for the homeless, and also just how in Memphis they approach homelessness, which is different than in many other cities. And interesting conversation on WKNO. We also talked with Matt Thompson, CEO of the Zoo, which we'll kind of get to if we have time here with Carissa, and all the things that the Zoo has going on. That was on WKNO.org, or download the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Back to Carissa, though, and talking about the building, it'll be interesting. I mean, this may be a phrase that you hate or you love, but about Metal Museum that people will kind of reference, given its beautiful location downtown and kind of out of the way. It's sort of the hidden gem kind of thing. Do you fear what it'll mean? I mean, you've thought about this very hard, and you're spending, raising money and moving into the center of the city. But are there things that will be lost by being so front and center in the city now, or is it all game?
We are keeping our current location, so in some ways it feels like we get the best of both worlds. Yeah. The current location, as I hope people know, we are retaining it, and it will become a true artist in residency program. So there'll be artists working there. It'll still be open to the public. You can come visit. We'll probably do fewer events there, but it will still be a place that we program and that people are welcome to come and enjoy. But, I don't think the museum would survive in its current location, and it certainly would not have grown. it's so far out of the way, and the closest bus stop is over a mile away. The construction has been really hard on us.
The
and of
highway
course,
construction,
yeah. And that roundabout is open, and we hope people will feel comfortable using it. But we'll also have a new bridge. So the construction is just not going to end in that area.
Yeah.
And I think that really has hurt us recently. But we also just did not have we couldn't grow.
Yeah.
There was no way to really build on our footprint. And the impact that we can make with more space in a central location is just going to be so much greater. And I do worry about kind of the culture and the community, but every time you ask somebody who works at the museum or is associated with the museum and they ask the question, what's your favorite part of the museum? They always say the people. And I don't see that changing. It's still going to be this incredible group of artists, incredible group of donors and members and supporters who just love the field. They love the work. They love that sense of belonging. And I think it's something that we will keep. And I think it's something that is very exciting for the artists that we work with. Every time we have a conference or during repair days or when we have artists in town for exhibitions, we try and take them through the space and share that vision with them. And they are so excited for what it will bring to the metalsmithing community.
And I'm going to pretend to be objective. It is legitimately an amazing location. You're in the middle of this park. You're next to an old growth forest. You've got the greensward. You've got whatever happens with the Brooks Museum space, there'll be something. It's pretty, you're not moving, I don't want to pick on a part of town, but you're not moving to somewhere that's generic in any sense whatsoever. It is special unto itself in the same way that the location downtown is incredibly beautiful and special. And so that will be really, and of course, from somebody who used to be on the Overton Park Board and just has followed all the things with what's going to happen, it's a great, I don't want to say gift to the city, but it's a great benefit to the city that the Metal Museum, if MCA had to close, that this is what replaced it. I mean, there were a lot of talk. There were a lot of ideas. No bad ideas in a brainstorm, but there were some really bad ideas. I was in some of those brainstorms where it was like, oh, no, we don't want that. We don't want that, So that's a pretty great thing for the city that maybe people haven't even quite realized yet until they see it and they see the activity and they see what's going on there.
Yeah, I also think that people just don't really realize how amazing that building is. Yeah. And certainly I was this way, the only spaces I had been in before I toured the full building were the main lobby and then the auditorium. Right. So that ground level lobby area. And when you start going up into the towers and really experiencing the architecture, but also the views of the park and how much it changes, you're kind of going up with the trees and each level. The views of the park are very different. You can see more. It has it's just really inspiring, and it's so incredibly amazing, just the architecture itself. And we've opened everything up, and you talk about a gem, and sort of this is like a jewel box. That with all of the windows, and it's really inspiring. And I think it was hard for people to envision what that building could be.
Yeah. Well, and because it was in disrepair, right? I mean, it was like, who would have the money, and then who could honor the history of it in the right way and not turn it into an office building or apartments. There were perfectly worthy uses that were thrown around, but that were completely changing what that building was about and built for.
Over the years, MCA had to change the spaces. They needed darker spaces as they were looking at digital art forms and graphic design. And so they began to kind of cover up some of the most inspiring parts of the architecture. And they had to. And it's completely understandable. And the building did need a lot of work, but it also needed to be something very different for us. We have a different way that we're using it. So we did have to move a lot of walls around, and then in the upper floors, we were able to remove the walls and really get it back to this really kind of pristine, beautiful space.
Were you again, back to, I'm kind of interested in the business model of all this stuff. Will you have to add staff? I mean, just to kind of, given the scale of the building, and I mean, but that's also the opportunity.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I mean, we're already adding staff.
Yeah.
But we will continue to do that up until we move. But it's hard because we don't have the space for the staff that we have right now. So we are really on top of each other down at the current location.
How much, over time, I talked with Matt Thompson, the CEO of the zoo, and, I was on the board of the Overton Park Conservancy during the big Greensward fight and all that kind of stuff. And people who don't know anything about that, I'm so happy for you. But the city and the park and the people in the park have moved past that. 99% of them moved past that. There's all this collaboration and working together. And I remember when Tina Sullivan, our friend, the former executive director of Overton Park, put a shared calendar together so that everybody would just, even in the height of the fighting between the park and the zoo and the Greensward and all that, there was this kind of effort to sort of say, hey, we have a big event going. Maybe you shouldn't, or maybe, could we coordinate? And all that stuff now has taken on even more of a life, and returning the 17 acres and just everything that's happening is really great and positive. Where do you have a sense yet? I mean, you're a year plus from opening in the park, ways in which you will collaborate with other entities in the park, or is that just down the road? You're just trying to get this building done and moved.
And I have to say that Natalie Wilson has been incredible.
From the show.
Yeah, we're neighbors. She has included us in security discussions, monthly park partners meetings, and she's been just really excited and supportive, and ways that we're collaborating already. So we are doing a topping off ceremony on Friday, and we're going to be doing it from the Shell stage and inviting all of the Shell audience and community to be part of it. And it was something that she offered, and it was just a great opportunity to collaborate and reach a larger audience. We are looking at ways that we can look at artwork on both of our properties and how we might think about placing them so it feels like kind of a continuous walk from the Shell property onto the museum property. And so that'll
be amazing.
Yeah.
An obvious thing that just in the way the park sort of happened, all these little separations that were created, and breaking that down is a great thing.
Yeah, and the way that we're redesigning the west side of the building, when you step out, you'll step into a little plaza area, and then you can walk right onto the grounds of the Shell. So there isn't going to be a separation.
Where all that construction fencing is right now.
Yeah, that'll be gone.
Yeah.
I mean, they can still close it off when they need to for ticketed events, but we wanted that to be a space where people could just gather, and, she could use it if she needed to for certain events and vice versa. So there are a lot of ways to collaborate. Of course, we have the auditorium in the building. It seats 350 people. It has amazing acoustics. It's original from the 67 part of the building. And so there are ways that we can collaborate with music and other events. So I'm really excited about it. And then, of course, Overton Park Conservancy, we've been talking to them and looking at additional ways that we can partner. They have a great summer camp program that they've been doing, which we'd love to participate in once we're in the park. And I have to say, Matt has been, with the zoo, has been incredibly supportive too. And we're looking forward to being in the park and finding new ways to collaborate. And that's one of the things that having all this space allows us to do that we really can't right now.
Right.
It's like we have a tent that we can have events in. And if we want to collaborate, then we have to rent all of these things.
Which is really expensive and a huge hassle. And you spend a lot of money to make a little money. And you know what I mean? Like, I get it. Right.
And so having all of this space will allow us to do partnerships and collaborations that we just don't even have the capacity to envision now because we don't have the space for it. So we are looking forward to all the things that we don't know yet that we're going to be able to do, of the new ideas and the new programming.
Yeah. And with the stuff the zoo's got going on, I mean, it was really interesting to talk to them. We'd written about some of it, but they're going to spend a ton of money, and they know that generates a ton of traffic and people into the park. And then all those people are going to drive, walk, or ride past the Metal Museum, and maybe including people who didn't know Memphis had a Metal Museum. But you know what I mean? So it'll be really interesting. MCA, we were talking about Memphis College of Art. I think last time we talked, you were hoping to have some way to kind of mark some history of MCA. Is that going to be possible in the building? Or are you guys filling it all up? Or, that's just this strange, it's not on you to do that. I don't mean it that way, but I know the Brooks is putting together, they've been working on a big exhibit of Memphis College of Art. I mean, at one point they were going to have that be one of the last exhibits in the building, in the park. And they also just want to catalog it and put a book together. And I'm always struck, I've said this before, I'll be interviewing somebody or talking to somebody and they'll mention they went to MCA. Somebody who maybe they're not even an active artist anymore, but they still do art or they're in the art world. And it's I don't know whose fault it is, but it just happened, the college closed. And it'll be interesting to see how the Brooks exhibit comes together. And again, I'm curious if you guys are going to be able to do anything permanent or from time to time honoring or remembering or whatever the right word is, MCA.
Yeah, we haven't come up with exactly what we will do, but we do have some of that history. We have the original architectural model of the school and some of the plaques. We also have Icon, which is a sculpture that was in front of the building. It will become part of our sculpture walk and gives us an opportunity to tell some of that history as well. So it will be part of the campus, part of the building and what we're programming, but not, we don't necessarily know exactly how.
Yeah.
We're gonna do that.
I mean, I think personally, the fact that an art institution is going in there in and of itself kind of marks that history, again, as opposed to perfectly good ideas that people have other ideas. Anything else we're wrapping up here that I missed? Any other stuff going on that, you got a lot going on.
I mean, we're obviously continuing to raise money. We are at about 80% of our total goal. But we've had some great support from the community that we really appreciate and support from places that we didn't necessarily expect. But it's been a great process and we are looking forward to sharing this space with people and the art form.
And the current location is very much, I always hate it when I leave the impression, it's like, talking to people from the Brooks. The Brooks is still open and the Metal Museum downtown is still open. You've got all your stuff going on. People can go to the website. There's constant events, activities, classes, everything's still
Our Wet
happening
Thursdays are happening still. Everything is.
Yeah. Okay. I know I asked you last time you were here, but I can never remember. What was your first concert?
The Police.
It was the Police. Mm-hmm. Where was it?
It was in Hawaii.
It was in Hawaii where you grew up.
Yeah.
God. Yeah. That's pretty good. Which tour was it? Do you remember which album? No. Was it before they were big or was it kind of when they're getting big?
It was when they were getting big.
Getting big, yeah. That's a good one.
But probably one of the best concerts was U2, the Sunday Bloody Sunday.
It was at Hawaii too?
They did, yeah.
Wow.
It was amazing.
That's amazing. I didn't see him on that tour, and that was a really huge mistake on my part. Carissa Hussong, thanks for being here very much from the Metal Museum. But that is all the time we have this week. If you missed any of the show, you can go to WYXR, the Daily Memphian, or wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube, to listen to the whole thing. And you can learn more at the Metal Museum by just Google Metal Museum and learn more about things going on and plans for the new museum. Thanks very much, and we'll see you next week.